Hello and welcome back to Void MTG. Sorry it's been so long. I've been dealing with the Oblivion crisis in Cyrodiil and then I was on vacation for a bit. Anyway, today's deck is the third precon I've ever bought and the deck I've had together the longest. It's Prosper Tomebound. My Prosper has been through so many builds and upgrades, and as it sits right now, it's probably a bracket 3. Prosper Tomebound is a 2 and Rakdos for a 1/4 Tiefling Warlock with Death Touch and Mythic Arcanum, which is at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. And Pact Boon, which says whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. So Prosper is really just nonstop value, as long as you're keeping him on the board. Our win cons in the deck are just dumping all our treasures into large X spells for big effects. There's Torment of Hellfire, Exsanguinate, and my personal favorite, Crackle with Power. Ever do 30 plus to someone's face with Crackle with Power? It feels really good. Torment of Hellfire is X and a black to repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacks a non-land permanent or discards a card. Exsanguinate is X and 2 black to have each opponent lose X life and you gain life equal to the amount lost. And Crackle with Power is triple X and 2 red, so whatever we pay into X has to be divisible by 3 just to make all the math easier for us. Then Crackle deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X target. Next, let's talk about the combos in the deck. I know this is a EDH deck, and I know there are quite a few combos in it. These are 2 combos that I have in the deck. All the cards are there. I do not play them. I don't really like to play that way. They're there. I don't tutor for them. I'll play with Sensei's Divining Top, but not in insidious ways. First is the Ob Nixilis combo. This will result in infinite draw and draw triggers, near infinite damage, and +1/+1 counters on Ob. To start, we need all 4 of these guys on the field. Ob Nixilis, Prosper. This could work with any pinger. I just really like Mayhem Devil the best. Sensei's Divining Top, and we'll need at least 1 treasure. We'll activate Sensei's Divining Top's second ability by tapping it. That lets us draw a card and put top back on top of our library. Next, we'll crack a treasure for 1 mana, and Mayhem Devil will trigger dealing 1 damage to an opponent, which leads Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin to trigger, putting a +1/+1 counter on him and exiling the top card of our library, and we play it till the beginning of our next end step. And would you look at that, the top card is Sensei's Divining Top. From here, we'll use our 1 floating mana from when we crack that treasure to cast top, triggering Prosper to create another treasure token. And this will go on forever unless someone interacts with it or we drain everyone to 0 with Mayhem Devil triggers. Or swinging with a very large Ob Nixilis. There's a lot of possibilities. The other combo works much the same, but does not deal infinite damage, so you'd have to rely on drawing your deck to get out a better win con. We just replace Ob Nixilis and the pinger with Professional Facebreaker and Zorn. When you make a treasure with Prosper, Zorn will allow you to make an additional treasure. So that pays for top and Facebreaker's cost of sacking a treasure to activate its second ability. Alright, now we get into the Exile and Exile payoffs. Freya's Apprentice, we can tap and sacrifice an artifact to exile the top card of our library, and we have until next turn to play it. Florian will let us look at the top X cards at the beginning of our post-combat main phase and exile 1 of them to play this turn. and the rest go to the bottom of our library. X is the amount of life opponents lost this turn. This deck does not attack much, but we do have a lot of pingers like Mayhem Devil and Ingenious Artillerist, Disciple of the Vault, Mirkwood Bats, so we'll definitely deal damage to trigger Florian. Light Up the Stage came in the pre-con, and I think aside from a few basics is probably the only card left aside from Prosper. I cannot give this card up. It's really fun because it kind of became a meme where I could be like, can I swing at you for 1? And my husband would be like, you cannot pay the spectacle cost on Light Up the Stage, because he knew I was going to play Light Up the Stage. I love it. Anyway, if we do get the damage through, it is only 1 red to exile the top 2 cards, and you can play them until next turn. Wild Wasteland has us skip our draw step and exile the top 2 cards instead, but we can only play them this. Prosper definitely has a dragon sub-theme, by the way. Brainstealer Dragon has, at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of each opponent's library. We could cast those cards as long as they remain exiled, and we spend mana so we remain of any color. And whenever we play one of our opponent's cards, they lose life equal to its mana value. Hoarding Brewlord is a tutor, but he also gives all our cast from exile. Delayed Blast Fireball is cast from exile, is a devastating one-sided board wipe. Passionate Archaeologist will have Prosper deal damage equal to the mana value for each card we cast from exile to target opponent. Keeper of Secrets will also deal damage equal to exiled card's mana value when we cast. Flaming Tyrannosaurus will deal 3 damage to any target and get a +1/+1 when we play cards from anywhere other than our hand. And when it eventually gets taken away from us, it will deal damage equal to its power to each opponent. Bonehorde Dracosaur exiles 2 cards on upkeep. If you exile land, you get a dino. If it's a non-land, you get a treasure. Nalfanshi will copy spells we cast from exile. If they are permanents, they'll enter as token copies. They gain haste. We sacrifice them at the beginning of the Some of our cards that make or care about treasure. Mastermind Plum will draw us cards when we use treasures to cast. We do have to pay 1 life, but when we sacrifice 5 treasures to Magda, we could search our library for an artifact or a dragon and put it straight to the field. This deck has a lot of dragons and a few very powerful. And speaking of a few good dragons, Cavern Horde is basically my new dockside since the ban RIP. Whenever Cavern Horde deals damage to an opponent, you create a treasure for each artifact that player controls. And that's easy because this dragon has flying and trample. Reign of Riches gives the first spell we cast using a treasure token. Cascade, which triggers Prosper because Cascade is still casting. And Goldspan Dragon lets our treasures crack for 2 mana, so if you're going to use those big X spells, this Alright, so now things that care about artifacts and tokens. Ingenious Artillerist and Reckless Fireweaver will deal damage on artifacts entering, Disciple of the Vault, and Nadier's Nightblade will deal damage on artifacts and tokens leave. Marionette Apprentice will also deal damage on artifacts leaving, and she makes artifacts when she enters. Mirkwood Bats is great in the deck because whenever a token enters or leaves, it deals damage. Crime Novelist is just so I love him. He is Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote. Like, look at his little cheeks. Whenever we sack an artifact, he gets +1/+1, and we get 1 red mana. When we make treasures, Academy Manufacturer will also make us clues and food, more artifacts to sack. Zorn we'll make an additional treasure whenever we make a treasure. Uba Mask is just such a fun card. If a player would draw a card, they exile the top card of their library instead, and they can play it this turn. This works great for us and infuriates the rest of the table because they have to play those cards or lose them, and they don't get a bonus. Viridian Longbow is here to attach to Prosper. Since he has Death Touch, if we tap him while it's attached and he deals 1 damage to any target, we can remove some problematic creatures from touch. Urza Saga will get us 2 Urza Strux. They could get massive with the amount of treasures we make. And at the end, we get to go look for Viridian Longbow or Sensei's Divining Top, whatever we need. Lastly, there is Sensei's Divining Top. As seen with the combos, it's a very powerful card in Prosper. We can just keep putting it onto the library and casting it from Exile to just net value. I don't play it for the combos, I just play it to play it. It's a fun card in the deck. That's all. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the recent engagement. I have videos that have almost 500 views. It's wild. Hopefully I'll be less distracted by Oblivion. Probably not really. It's my favorite game. And I've also been dismantling every deck I own to make. That's it. Thanks again. GG's.